Good evening. Thank you, everyone. Today we will present a contribution that explores the complex relations between text and image in the context of knowledge representation practices and semantic web technologies. So starting from theories of intermediality, we will focus on a particular kind of intermediate relation, that is the phenomenon of ekphrasis, studied through the lens of annotation as semiotic and epistemic acts. The digital humanities field increasingly engage with both multimodality and intermediality, meaning working with different kinds of objects and media, text, images, 3D objects, so on and so forth, and intermediality, connecting them within the digital environment. Yet, intermediality remains underexplored, especially with respect to knowledge representation practices. So we're starting from a research question, that is how to formally represent intermediality of cultural heritage objects in the digital environment. And as a subject research question, we delved into a question to how formally represent the phenomenon of ekphrasis, meaning the special relation between text and image. But what is intermediality? Intermediality has been defined as a phenomenon that stays in between, a bridge between different media, and an attempt of classification of intermediality has been made by Rajewski, that subdivided the phenomenon in three subcategories that are media combination, media transposition, and intermediate reference. It's in this last category that we can find also the ekphrastic relation. But what is an ekphrasis? An ekphrasis is a verbal description of a visual work of art, and is also a literary genre pertaining to the classical studies, where the author decides to imply rhetorical modalities to produce an effect on the reader. So we also can say that there is a taxonomy of the ekphrasis made by Michele Cometa, which divides the ekphrasis into form and rhetorical modalities. The form pertains the existence of the visual referent of the ekphrasis, and the rhetorical modalities are denotation, dynamization, and integration that are used by the author of the text to pursue a kind of effect within the reader. So in this perspective, Rajewski classifies the ekphrasis within the category of intermediate references, as said, and in this category, the peculiar aspect is the as if character, because the medium A referring to the medium B cannot entirely reproduce it. It can only evoke or imitate it. So even expanding its representational modalities. This process is exactly what happens within the ekphrastic relations. The author describes a work of art as if it is in front of the reader, and uses rhetorical modalities to integrate the description of a static image, for example, to make it more dynamic or make it more vivid within in front of the reader. So, given all these methodological premises, we will now present two attempts of modeling intermediate relations and ekphrasis, starting from two case studies. The first case study was the novel Il gioco dell'oca by Edoardo Sanguinetti, an example of combinatory literature that, among other aspects, incorporate intermediality, since the author wrote each chapter as a particular ekphrasis of a visual cultural object of the 1960s. Therefore, the text is deeply interconnected with the visual medium. Then So our first attempt of modeling intermediality was MIRO, the Multimedia Interrelation Ontology, developed with Erika Bruno. That tries to explicit the ekphrastic relation by indicating the relationship between two fixed media that are always the text and the image, and by saying that the text always has some particular features that helps in the recognition of the visual media described. As a second case study, we instead focused on the Giuseppe Raimondi notebooks that contains more traditional collection of ekphrasis, since Giuseppe Raimondi was a Bolognese writer. We now preserve his archive here in the department of the University of Bologna. He was also an art critic that studies Italian and European works of art. Another important characteristic of this case study was the digitization of these notebooks that nowadays are exposed by the digital library of this department using the IIIF protocol, which not only exposes interoperable images, but also allows to annotate them thanks to the integration of the web annotation data model with the IIIF protocol. So we asked ourselves, how can annotation be used conceptually and technically to describe intermediate relations, connecting text and image in the digital environment?
So we must ask, what is an annotation? We can describe an annotation from a semiotical perspective as having an indexical relationship between a body and another target entity. Semiotically, indexing is the function which connects two entities by a factual relation. So an annotation creates an indexical relation between a body and another entity. Moreover, while the annotation is referring to a specific entity, it can also mediate between local knowledge and external knowledge, that is knowledge connecting to other kind of objects. Similarly, ekphrasis can be described as a special kind of annotation because it maintains an indexical relationship between two objects and between the textual element and iconic referent, as we can see in the Walter Benjamin and Paul Klee example above. From a conceptual perspective, annotation creates a dialogic structure between two entities through an explicit connection produced by an annotator. From a technical point of view, this is represented by the web annotation data model. And you can see an example of web annotation data model above. So for describing and modeling ekphrasis, we created the general ekphrastic ontology. We divided it into two layers, the ekphrastic layer and the annotation layer. The overall idea is that ekphrasis is a natural language discourse created by an author, and you can see that represented in the ekphrasis layer. Annotation, conversely, are a formal structured representation derived from the ekphrasis itself, produced by a different interpreter for analytical purposes. And you can see that represented into the annotation layer. So in the ekphrastic layer, the GECO model core is on the GECO ekphrasis class, which captures the relationship between two distinct components. The textual component is represented through as the textual referent that is pointing to LRMOO action. These represent the verbal description as created by an author, and it's the natural language discourse existing independently of any digital modeling activity. The visual component instead connects via as iconic referent to an LRM or work, representing the artwork being described. And also the property Gecko as form allow to distinguish between mimetic and notional ekphrasis. In the annotation layer, instead, ekphrasis is then represented through a structured set of annotation. So each ekphrasis is decomposed into multiple annotation, each conforming to the web annotation data model. This decomposition allows granularity to describe the rhetorical strategy of the ekphrastic element itself. So Gecko introduces the Gecko as ekphrastic modality property, connecting annotation to the three distinct rhetorical modes derived from Michele Cometa taxonomy that we've seen. Moreover, this model allows to employ annotation both from a conceptual, let's say, semiotic perspective, and also to implement the web annotation data model, to employ the web annotation data model, which can then be easily integrated into a TRIF manifest, and this allows us to harmonize the actual and iconic elements into the same editorial object, that is the manifest. Okay.
So, as a conclusion, what we wanted to do with this panoramic view of theories and methodologies applied on theories was to provide a new reflection, to bring you a new reflection on what is the status of objects within the digital humanities connected to the theory of intermediality, since the digital environment is actually the core of digital environment is intermediality. So we think that rethinking intermediality through the practice of annotation leads also to rethink the status of the edge products and the edge objects as dynamic and interlinked. And as seen, one of these objects is, for example, the IIIF manifest, capable of aggregating different media thanks to the practice of annotation, as said. And also the practice of modeling intermediate references is essential to make the semantic explicit and to enrich the description of cultural heritage objects within the digital environment. As a last remark, so we asked ourselves, what's the status of a digital humanist connected to the intermediality of the digital environment? And McPherson in 2008 gave a definition of multimodal humanist that I would like to read altogether, because it says that the multimodal humanist brings together databases, scholarly tools, network writing, and peer-to-peer commentary, while also leveraging the potential of visual, and we can say any kind of media that so dominate contemporary life. So the multimodal scholar explores new forms of literacy that include authoring and analyzing visual, and again, any media, dynamically and interactively. So the last remark is, can be this definition of multimodal humanist a definition also for a digital humanist? And thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Perfectly on time. Actually, 1 minute short, so that leaves plenty of time for questions. Any questions in the room? Online? So I'll start with the conversation. We were talking earlier about annotation being a very broad concept used in all kinds of research fields in the humanities. So in a way, it seems like intermediality is also a form of annotation.
Yes.
So how would you see this relationship? Is the interpretation here of annotation just a very specific form? Or? elaborate?
Yeah, I think that, and then if you want to add up,
Yes.
I think that ekphrasis is a specific and kind of annotation because it has aniconic reference specifically, while annotation in general could be more abstract and create a relationship between all the, let's say, the kind of media we can think of. So, but from semiotic perspective, I think that we can say that an ekphrasis in the end is a kind of annotation, as we were talking about that before. The philosophically, I think it's problematic because annotation and basically everything that has indexical relationship can be defined as annotation. So I think the digital humanities lack a theoretical rationale for annotation that can be discussed, and from a technical point of view, I think the web annotation data model is a very good and very accessible and flexible way of creating and utilizing annotation. We gave you some general example, but I think that the digital humanities lack a theoretical rationale of annotation still, and so this could be a matter of discussion also with you all, and maybe don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, it seems like annotation as a general term is just so underspecified that
Yes.
you know what do you mean by that. Okay, in the meantime, have people thought of questions? Yes.
Thank you very much for the presentation. It was very interesting. And I also attended the previous presentation on the early stage of this project. And I think that it's very interesting the way it's evolving. And I wanted to ask, as future steps, if there is at the moment one case study you would like ideally to develop in future, and for which maybe at the moment you still would like to keep developing all of the project. So what ideally would you like to test upon in future? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Actually, we didn't delve into the technical aspects of the project. So I would like to say that the first step is to try to integrate these two models that we have done, because as I tried to show you, there are similarities in the conceptualization, of course. So the first step would be integrate the two models. And then as a case study, I think I will try to stay focused on the Giuseppe Raimondi's Ekphrasis, but I would like to test also different kind of intermediate relations, maybe not just the Ekphrasis, but for example, the relationship between text and image within manuscripts. So for example, we have already projects that integrate annotations within the digital library of the Biblioteca Vaticana, the Vatican Library, that has extensively used web annotation data model to annotate manuscripts. And there is a specific pathway, they call it a thematic pathway, dedicated to illuminated manuscripts within the library of Federico da Montefeltro. And I wanted to see how to model these annotations that already exist actually, but are not semantically meaningful in terms of intermediate relations. So how to interact, this annotation interact with the text of the manuscript. And this could be a case study very well applicable for the model. So, yeah.
I'll add just a few things that, of course, we modeled Ekphrasis, that is an explicit, let's say, connection, because one author created an Ekphrasis, so he was explicitly referring to another object. But I think that annotation could be very interesting to be employed also in multimodal manuscripts in general, to formalize, to explicit the let's say not so obvious relationship and intertwining between iconic elements and more canonical elements. And I think this is very nice for the digital humanities to go in this also in this direction of visual studies. And one aspect that I would like to explore more, just to add up, is the notional kind of ekphrasis, that are those ekphrasis that don't have how can I say existing object, a real object. Scudo di Achille, Achilles shield is a very well-known example of that. So I think that with VLM maybe, and some kind of, but notional ekphrasis can be very interesting to try to query, let's say, digital art history databases and find out if there's a connection between textual ekphrasis and iconic referent that we may miss, or that we may not know that we have stored somewhere, just to add up.
Okay, let's thank our speakers again.
Thank you.
Thank you.